Hello everyone and welcome back to the 1000 days challenge update. This is day 66. So you will notice today that the balance has dropped and it's actually from the experimental setup. It has went from positive back to negative again as a couple of short setup was taken on the shorter time frame on 1 hour chart, and it turns out that the price actually shoot up. So all of them was actually triggered in terms of stop loss. So that is fine, and that's part and parcel of the experimental setup and the risk of having additional setup of that. All right, and going back into the update today, I will only be updating the weekly and also the daily along with the 4-hourly chart of Bitcoin or crypto in general. So for Bitcoin itself, let's go back to the weekly chart. All right, on the weekly chart, what you still see here is a smaller kind of consolidation pattern. So over here, we have a sign of like a red hammer or some sort of like an exhaustion candlestick after a small little upward trend or bounce from the 21 exponential moving average. So I would say that the more time you spend near this 21 exponential moving average, the 20 moving average, exponential moving average, the more bearish it tends to be in that sense. And reason being is that it shows that there's a lack of buyers sense, but of course you could also retest the support and bounce back strongly in that sense. So yeah, over here you can see that the range has actually decreased. So over here you can see the high over here and the low over here is much higher than the high over here and the low over there of last week. So during this kind of period, you will see that generally the volatility is actually shrinking, which is why you will see that either I have a lot of stop out, which means a lot of all those stop losses being triggered, and it could potentially be a much better situation to use your range bound trading strategy during on your shorter time frame as well. Yeah, so that's something to bear in mind. And moving on to the daily time frame. All right, so on the daily time frame, well, it also can be clearly seen that you're forming this with this region. If you just change it to a line chart, it's easier to see. You'll notice that over here is forming a low, a higher low, and even a higher low over here, whereas the high is forming a high, a lower high, and potentially a lower high over here. So it's forming somewhat like a very nice consolidation pattern. And yeah, the volatility is shrinking. So once it shrinks towards the end, which could potentially be either here or even a couple more days, it could break strongly above, it could break strongly below as well. That's where I see potential strong reaction. If it does break strongly above, it could potentially bounce back near this region as isolated. Yeah, so this region would definitely be, of course, it could retest over here and then drop sharply again, or it could just have a false break and then go all the way up as well. Yeah, so there's another alternative. All right, on a closer look on the 4-hourly chart, which is where I mainly trade at, let's take a closer look. You'll notice that yesterday I mentioned that I would not enter a short even though there was some sort of like a pullback and potentially it could drop back down. And I'll only short when there's at the very minimum of bearish market structure formation, which you can see it didn't. Over here, you form a high, a higher high, a low, a higher low, still a higher high, still higher low, but potentially we could retrace a little bit. But now the key difference is that price has actually crossed above and stay above the 200 simple moving average on the 4-hourly chart. But bear in mind that if you look at notice here recently is that this 200 simple moving average on the 4-hourly chart is not as strong as the dynamic support or resistance currently. So that is something to bear in mind as well. But of course for me, because I'm a trend follower, I typically use this 200 simple moving average as a guideline of being long bias or being short bias because I ride the trend in that sense. And of course, if you are looking to trade a range bound strategy, this would preferably be a good chance as well because price is just swinging up and down in smaller, so-called the range itself. Yeah, that's just my thoughts. And yeah, so potentially I draw this new one is because I could see that potentially we could have a pullback and a break above over this resistance. And the reason why I say this resistance is because you will see that there was this so-called high rejection over here. But if we could have a pullback and then a break above, that's where I would enter a buy stop order. Alternatively, what I want to see is actually more interested to see is I want it to consolidate small over here, so at least like 4 to 5 candlesticks. So I wouldn't consider any consolidation has started yet. If it does consolidate over here, and then I'll be willing to put a buy stop order here for a target over here with a stop loss over here. Somewhere around here, it could be somewhere tighter as well, depending on how the formation consolidation forms. And yeah, so key thing, one thing I'm looking for long setup there is the main thing. Alternatively, for short setup, I wanted to break below, potentially consolidate below the 200 simple moving average, and then break below, and that's where I'll enter a short setup. Yep, you can pause here and take a look over here. So basically, like what I mentioned, for a long setup, I'm waiting for consolidation between 10.6 to 10.75K for at least 5 candlesticks. And then with decreasing volatility, that's key because I want it to consolidate nicely like a sharp pattern towards a small little point before it breaks out there. It gives you a very good stop loss, which means a very good risk to reward setup. Alternatively, I want it to pull back, retest this support region before it breaks above, then there's where I could also enter along with a buy stop order. And thirdly, for short setup, I want it to break below, consolidate below, and then break down further. That's where I'll be willing to go a sell stop order. So basically, there's 3 alternatives that could play out depending on how price go. But bear in mind that if none of these scenarios happen, then I will not step into the trade in terms of price action wise. So there's something to bear in mind. In the meantime, what you could do is actually look out for various setup in be different pairs or even different asset class as well. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great evening and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.